You think attraction is about being good-looking, about being charming, about saying the right things at the right time. You're wrong. And the fact that you're wrong is why you're invisible, why you're forgettable, why people engage with you and then disappear. I'm about to show you something that will make you uncomfortable. Something that contradicts every Disney fairy tale, every romantic comedy, every just be yourself platitude you've ever been fed. 500 years ago, a man named Niccolo Machiavelli wrote a book that was so dangerous, so psychologically precise that the Catholic Church banned it. The Prince wasn't just about political power. It was about human nature, about the mechanics of desire, about why people submit to certain individuals and ignore others. And tonight, I'm going to decode the attraction principles hidden inside Machiavelli's work, principles that the powerful have used for centuries, principles that separate the chosen from the forgotten. But I'm warning you now, once you understand these mechanics, once you see how attraction actually operates beneath the surface of polite society, you can never unsee it. You'll recognize these patterns everywhere, in your relationships, in your workplace, in every social interaction you observe. And you'll realize something terrifying. You've been playing a game you didn't even know existed, while everyone else was reading the rules. Let's begin. The Prince of Perception, Beyond Manipulation. Here's what they don't teach you in school about Machiavelli. He wasn't a monster. He was an observer, a scientist of human behavior who watched kingdoms rise and fall, alliances form and shatter, leaders worshipped and then destroyed. And he noticed patterns, uncomfortable patterns, patterns that revealed how power actually flows between human beings, not how we wish it would flow. When most people hear the term Machiavellian, they think of manipulation, deception, ruthlessness. But that's a fundamental misunderstanding. Machiavelli's core insight wasn't about manipulation. It was about perception management, about understanding that reality matters far less than perceived reality. What people believe about you shapes their behavior toward you more than what you actually are. And this principle, this uncomfortable truth, is the foundation of all lasting attraction. Think about someone you're deeply attracted to. Now ask yourself, do you actually know them? Or do you know the version of them they've allowed you to perceive? The truth is, attraction doesn't operate in the realm of objective reality. It operates in the realm of perception, of mystery, of strategic information control. Machiavelli observed that leaders who revealed everything about themselves, who made themselves completely known, lost their mystique, their power, their ability to inspire loyalty and fascination. The same principle applies to attraction. When you make yourself completely transparent, completely available, completely knowable, you destroy the very mechanism that creates fascination. Because fascination requires gaps, questions, space for the other person's imagination to fill in details that are inevitably more compelling than reality. This isn't about lying. It's about understanding that humans are wired to be more attracted to mystery than to certainty, to the unknown rather than to the completely mapped. And the people who understand this, who weaponize this psychological principle, become magnetic in ways that defy conventional logic. The fundamental architecture of desire. Before we go deeper, you need to understand how desire actually works. Not how romance novels say it works, not how movies portray it, how it actually functions in the human brain. Desire is not rational. It doesn't respond to logic, fairness, or deservingness. It responds to three core mechanisms: scarcity, uncertainty, perceived value. These three elements form the psychological infrastructure of all attraction. Remove any one of them, and desire collapses. Machiavelli understood this 5 centuries before neuroscience confirmed it. He watched how people pursued those who were difficult to access, how they valued counsel from those who rarely gave it, how they fought for the attention of leaders who made themselves strategically unavailable. And he recognized a pattern that most people are too afraid to acknowledge. Humans don't value what comes easily. They value what they have to work for, what feels slightly beyond their reach, what requires effort, patience, and strategic positioning to obtain. This is why the nice person who's always available, always agreeable, always eager to please gets friend-zoned. Not because people are shallow, but because availability destroys perceived value. And without perceived value, there is no desire. This is the brutal truth that society doesn't want you to know. Attraction is fundamentally economic. It operates on principles of supply and demand, scarcity and abundance, cost and benefit. And the moment you understand this, the moment you accept that desire isn't about fairness or kindness or good intentions, everything changes. You stop being a passive participant in your own life. You become an architect of perception, a strategist of desire, a student of Machiavelli's most dangerous lesson, that perceived value is more powerful than actual value because humans can only act on what they perceive, not on what objectively exists. Cultivating scarcity, the art of perceived value. Let me tell you about someone named Marcus, 28 years old, software engineer, makes good money, reasonably attractive, interesting hobbies. By every conventional metric, Marcus should be doing well in dating. But he's not. He's invisible. And for 3 years, he couldn't figure out why until he had a conversation that changed everything. His friend Daniel, who seemed to effortlessly attract people despite being objectively less successful, less attractive, and less interesting than Marcus, told him something brutal. "You're too available, man. You respond to texts immediately. You rearrange your schedule for anyone. You make it clear you have nothing better to do than wait for someone to pay attention to you. And that makes you worthless." Marcus was offended. "So you're saying I should play games, pretend I'm busy?" "No," Daniel said. "I'm saying you should actually be busy. You should actually have a life so compelling that you're not always available, because right now you're communicating that you're not in demand, and things that aren't in demand have no value." This is Machiavelli's first principle of attraction. Scarcity creates value. Not artificial scarcity, not pretend unavailability. Real scarcity born from genuine self-investment. In The Prince, Machiavelli observed that leaders who made themselves too accessible lost respect. Their counsel became cheap. Their presence became expected rather than appreciated. But leaders who controlled access to themselves, who made their time and attention valuable through genuine selectivity, maintained power and admiration. The same dynamic governs attraction. When you're always available, always responsive, always ready to drop everything for someone, you're not being kind. You're broadcasting low value. You're telling people, "I have nothing more important than you. I'm not in demand. I'm waiting." And humans are wired to avoid what's waiting for them and pursue what's moving away. So, what did Marcus do? He stopped pretending to be busy and actually became busy. He started training for a marathon, joined a philosophy discussion group, took up woodworking, started writing a technical blog that gained a small but engaged following. Not to attract people, to build a life he actually valued. And something interesting happened. People started pursuing him. Not because he was playing games, but because he genuinely had things going on. His responses came slower because he was actually occupied. Plans with him required coordination because he had commitments. And suddenly, his presence had weight. His time had value. His attention felt earned, not given. This is Machiavelli's approach to scarcity. Don't fake it. Build it. Create a life so genuinely compelling that your scarcity is a natural byproduct of your engagement with things that matter to you. Because here's what most people don't understand. Scarcity isn't about making yourself unavailable. It's about making yourself valuable enough that your availability becomes precious. And the only way to achieve that is through genuine self-investment. Through becoming someone who's actually doing things worth doing, through cultivating interests, skills, relationships, and pursuits that fulfill you independent of romantic validation. When you have this, you don't need to manufacture scarcity. It emerges naturally. And people can sense the difference between manufactured unavailability and genuine engagement with life. The first feels manipulative. The second feels magnetic, because it is. The mathematics of absence. There's a psychological principle that Machiavelli understood intuitively, but modern science has now confirmed. It's called the Zeigarnik effect, and it explains why strategic absence is more powerful than constant presence. The Zeigarnik effect describes how human memory works. We remember incomplete tasks better than completed ones. Our brains are obsessed with unfinished business, with gaps, with questions without answers. When you're always present in someone's life, there's no gap, no incomplete task, no psychological tension. Your presence is resolved, answered, completed, and completed things fade from consciousness. But when you strategically withdraw, when you create space between interactions, you trigger the Zeigarnik effect. Their brain starts working. Where are they? What are they doing? Why haven't they reached out? Are they with someone else? Did I do something wrong? Are they more important than I realized? This mental activity is an investment. Every time someone thinks about you when you're not there, they're investing psychological energy into your existence in their life. And humans are wired to value what they invest in. This is why the person who texts constantly becomes background noise, while the person who texts occasionally becomes an event. This is why the always available friend gets taken for granted, while the selectively available friend gets appreciated. This is why leaders who maintain strategic distance command more respect than leaders who try to be everyone's buddy. Accessibility breeds contempt, or worse, indifference. But strategic scarcity breeds fascination.
The elevation protocol. Now let's talk about how to actually increase your perceived value. Because scarcity without value is just isolation. You need both. In Machiavelli's Observations of Power, he noted that respected leaders shared certain characteristics. They had skills others valued. They had knowledge others needed. They had resources others wanted access to. They had judgment that others trusted. This created dependency, and dependency, when managed correctly, creates attraction. But here's the modern translation. You need to become genuinely excellent at something, not for other people, for yourself. But excellence creates value, and value creates options, and options create scarcity because your time becomes competed for. Most people approach self-improvement backward. They try to be good at everything, to appeal to everyone, to have no rough edges that might offend or alienate. And in doing so, they become generic, forgettable, a smooth stone that blends into the beach. The Machiavellian approach is different. Become exceptional at one thing. Develop deep expertise in a domain that matters to you. Build skills that have genuine value in the world. This serves two purposes. First, it makes you legitimately interesting. You become someone with depth, with perspective, with the ability to contribute something unique to conversations and situations. Second, it removes the psychological neediness that kills attraction. When you have genuine competence, when you're building something meaningful, You stop needing external validation to feel okay about yourself. And that shift from needing approval to being okay without it is perhaps the most attractive transformation a human can undergo. Let me give you a framework. The Elevation Protocol. Phase 1. Domain selection. Choose one area where you'll develop genuine mastery, not for social approval, for personal satisfaction. This could be professional, creative, intellectual, or physical. The key is genuine interest. You can't fake sustained excellence. Your domain should be something that naturally captures your attention and energy. Phase 2. Deep investment. Commit 10 to 20 hours per week minimum. This isn't casual dabbling. This is deliberate practice aimed at continuous improvement. Document your progress. Build a body of work. Create evidence of your development. Phase 3. Strategic visibility. Here's where Machiavelli's insight becomes critical. Don't advertise your efforts. Reveal your competence naturally, almost casually. When someone asks what you did this weekend, mention your pursuit as one detail among others. Don't explain why it's significant. Let them discover the depth themselves. This creates the perception of hidden dimensions, of layers they haven't yet uncovered. Phase 4. Value creation. Use your developing expertise to actually help people, solve problems, provide insight, create experiences. But be selective. Don't give your expertise freely to everyone. Make it valuable through scarcity. This isn't about being stingy. It's about recognizing that things freely given are rarely valued. Phase 5. Compound effects. As you develop genuine competence, several things happen simultaneously. You become objectively more interesting because you have deeper perspectives. You become naturally busier because meaningful pursuits consume time. You become less needy because you have intrinsic fulfillment. You become more confident because competence breeds legitimate self-assurance. All of these factors compound into increased perceived value. And increased perceived value creates the scarcity-desire dynamic that Machiavelli observed in power relationships. People want access to valuable people. They pursue those who are genuinely engaged in meaningful pursuits. They're attracted to competence, confidence, and the subtle unavailability that comes from genuine investment in excellence. This is the Machiavellian elevation, becoming someone actually worth pursuing rather than trying to make yourself appealing through availability and agreeableness.
Now we arrive at perhaps Machiavelli's most misunderstood principle, the power of strategic obscurity. In The Prince, Machiavelli wrote something that scandalized his contemporaries. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. This wasn't cynicism, it was an observation. He recognized that humans relate to the version of you they've constructed in their minds, not the complete reality of who you are. And more importantly, he understood that the version they construct is often more compelling than the reality. Because imagination fills gaps with idealized content, with mystery, with qualities that confirm what they want to believe. This is why the person who shares everything immediately, who's an open book from the first conversation, often fails to create lasting attraction. Not because transparency is bad, but because it removes the discovery process. And humans are wired to enjoy discovery more than possession. The chase is more than the capture. The question is more than the answer. Think about your favorite books, movies, or TV series. The ones you couldn't stop thinking about. They all had one thing in common. They revealed information gradually. They made you work for understanding. They kept you in a state of curiosity, always asking what happens next, or what does this mean? The same principle governs human attraction. When you reveal everything about yourself immediately, your past, your insecurities, your motivations, your daily routine, your entire belief system, you complete the puzzle. And completed puzzles get put back in the box. But when you reveal information strategically, when you share layers gradually, when you let people discover aspects of you over time, you maintain psychological engagement. You become a narrative they're invested in following, a mystery they're motivated to solve. Now, here's where people get this wrong. Being mysterious doesn't mean being secretive or evasive. It doesn't mean refusing to answer questions or being deliberately vague. That's not mysterious, that's annoying. The real mystery is about selective revelation. It's about answering questions, but not over-explaining. It's about sharing information, but not your entire autobiography. It's about being present, but maintaining boundaries. It's about letting people discover your depth naturally, rather than front-loading everything in a desperate attempt to seem interesting.
The architecture of intrigue. Let me introduce you to someone named Sophia, 32, marketing director, objectively successful and interesting. But she had a problem. First dates went well, great conversation, genuine connection, and then nothing. No second date, no sustained interest, just polite distance. She couldn't figure out why until a brutally honest friend told her, "You give away your entire story in the first hour. By the end of the date, I feel like I've known you for years, and there's nothing left to discover." Sophia was confused. "But I thought being open and authentic was attractive." "Authenticity is attractive," her friend said. "Information dumping is not. You're confusing transparency with connection." This is the trap most people fall into. They think that sharing everything about themselves demonstrates trust and openness. But what it actually demonstrates is poor boundary management and a lack of strategic thinking. In Machiavellian terms, you're giving away your leverage. Your information is your currency, and when you spend it all immediately, you have nothing left to trade with. Here's how the architecture of intrigue actually works. Layer 1. The surface reality. This is what you share initially. Your basic situation, your current pursuits, your general interests. This layer is accessible and friendly. It invites engagement without revealing depth. Layer 2. The selective detail. As interactions progress, you reveal specific details that hint at greater depth. Maybe you mention a hobby that seems unusual for your profession. Maybe you reference an experience that suggests complexity in your past. Maybe you demonstrate knowledge in an unexpected domain. These details create questions. They suggest there's more to you than initially apparent. Layer 3. The contradictory element. This is where intrigue intensifies. You reveal something that contradicts or complicates the image you've presented. Maybe you're a corporate executive who writes poetry. Maybe you're a deeply spiritual scientist. Maybe you're socially confident but genuinely introverted. Contradictions are compelling because they defy easy categorization. They force people to reconsider their understanding of you. Layer 4. The earned revelation. This is information you only share after significant interaction, after trust has been established, after someone has demonstrated a genuine interest in understanding you. This might be personal history, formative experiences, core vulnerabilities. But these revelations come with a subtext. I'm sharing this because you've earned it, because our connection has depth, and that makes the information valuable, makes the person feel privileged to receive it. Layer 5. The perpetual mystery. Even in deep, long-term connections, maintain some level of unpredictability. Continue developing, learning, evolving. Become someone who can't be completely known because you're not static. You're a moving target, a continuous process of becoming. This keeps even established relationships dynamic and engaging.
The information economy. Machiavelli understood something that modern psychology has confirmed. Information is power. But more specifically, controlled information is power. In political contexts, he observed that leaders who maintained informational asymmetry, who knew more than they revealed, held a strategic advantage. The same principle applies to attraction. When you control the flow of information about yourself, when you are strategic about what you reveal and when, you maintain psychological leverage. Not in a manipulative sense, in a strategic sense. You're managing the narrative of discovery. Here's a practical framework. The response gradient. When someone asks you a question, answer it, but don't expand beyond what was asked. If they ask what you do for work, tell them, but don't immediately launch into your entire career history and future ambitions. If they ask about your weekend, share what you did, but don't explain every detail and internal experience. Answer the question, then stop. Create space for them to ask follow-up questions if they're genuinely curious. This does two things. First, it respects their actual level of interest. Not everyone who asks a polite question wants a comprehensive answer. Second, it creates a pattern where they have to work slightly to understand you, and that work creates investment. The selective depth. When you do share more depth, be strategic about which topics. Choose areas where you have genuine expertise, unique experiences, or compelling perspectives. Become known for specific domains of knowledge or experience. This creates a perception of depth in certain areas while maintaining mystery in others. You become fascinated with specific things rather than trying to be interested in everything. The unanswered door. Always leave something unaddressed. A question implied but not answered. A story started but not finished. A perspective hinted at but not fully explained. These unresolved elements keep people mentally engaged with you even when you're not present. They create the Zeigarnik effect we discussed earlier. Their brains keep working on understanding you because you've left the puzzle incomplete. The strategic redirect. When conversations venture into territory you'd prefer to keep private, don't refuse to answer. Redirect. Acknowledge the question, give a minimal response, then ask a related question back. This maintains conversational flow while protecting your informational leverage. It says, "I heard your question, but I'm not ready to give you full access to that part of me yet. Let's explore this related topic instead." And that subtle boundary is attractive because it demonstrates self-respect and strategic thinking. The narrative architecture. Here's something most people don't realize. You're not just managing information, you're crafting a narrative. Every interaction contributes to the story people tell themselves about who you are. And the most compelling stories are those with mystery, complexity, and gradual revelation. Machiavelli understood narrative power. He knew that how a leader's story was told mattered more than the objective facts of their reign. That perception could be architected through strategic information control. The same principle applies to personal attraction. You need to think of yourself as a narrative in progress, not a completed biography. What story are your revelations creating? Are you revealing information that builds intrigue or that resolves it? Are you sharing details that complicate your character or that simplify it? Are you maintaining narrative tension or are you explaining away all mystery? The most attractive people understand something crucial. They're not trying to be fully understood. They're trying to be endlessly interesting. And interesting narratives are those that resist complete understanding, that continues to surprise, that reveals new layers even after extended engagement.
So, the question becomes, what narrative are you crafting through your selective revelations? What story are people telling themselves about who you are? And is that story compelling enough to make them want more chapters? Because in the attention economy of human relationships, you're competing with every other narrative vying for psychological real estate. The boring story gets forgotten, the confusing story gets abandoned, but the mysterious story, the one that reveals just enough to fascinate while withholding enough to intrigue, that story gets followed, gets pursued, gets remembered. And that's the Machiavellian approach to mystery, not deception, strategic narrative architecture. Mastering desire, the art of shaping expectations. We need to talk about something uncomfortable, something most people refuse to acknowledge. Desire isn't spontaneous, it's engineered. Not through manipulation, through understanding. Through recognizing what people actually want versus what they say they want. Machiavelli wrote about this extensively in The Prince. He observed that humans say they value honesty, fairness, and moral virtue, but they actually respond to strength, decisiveness, and the perception of value. The disconnect between stated preferences and revealed preferences, between what people claim to want and what they actually pursue. This is the foundation of strategic attraction. You don't appeal to what people say they want, you appeal to what their behavior reveals they actually want. And what do humans actually want? 3 core things: security, significance, and stimulation. Every human decision, every pursuit, every relationship choice ultimately serves one or more of these core needs, and the people who understand how to fulfill these needs become magnetic. Let's break this down. The security principle. Humans are threat detection machines. Our brains are constantly scanning for danger, uncertainty, and risk. And one of the things we're scanning for in potential partners is, will this person make my life more stable or more chaotic? Most people approach this by trying to be safe, predictable, reliable, non-threatening. But that's not security. That's boredom. The Machiavellian approach to security is different. It's not about being safe, it's about being capable. About demonstrating that you can navigate complexity, handle challenges, and maintain composure under pressure. This is why competence is attractive. Not because people consciously think this person could protect me, but because competence signals resource acquisition ability, problem-solving capacity, and emotional regulation, all of which create unconscious feelings of security. Here's how this manifests practically. When challenges arise in your life, how do you handle them? Do you panic, complain, become paralyzed? Or do you assess, strategize, and take action? The person who demonstrates calm capability in the face of challenges is providing a security signal that transcends logical analysis. They're showing the world is uncertain, but I'm equipped to navigate it. And if you're with me, you benefit from that capability. This is an attraction through demonstrated competence, not through saying I'll take care of you, through showing I take care of things. The significance principle. Every human has a deep, often unacknowledged need to feel significant, to matter, to be seen as special, unique, valuable. Most people try to fulfill this need in others through generic compliments and constant validation. You're amazing. You're so smart. You're beautiful. These statements are meaningless because they're non-specific. They could apply to anyone. And when something applies to everyone, it signifies no one. The Machiavellian approach to creating significance is precision. It's about demonstrating that you actually see the person, not their surface attributes, not what everyone sees, but something specific, something unique, something they might not even fully see in themselves. This requires actual observation, actual attention, actual analysis of who someone is beyond their social presentation. And when you demonstrate this level of perception, when you reflect to someone a specific capacity they possess, you become psychologically valuable in a way that transcends conventional attraction. You become someone who makes them feel significant, and people become addicted to those who make them feel significant.
The stimulation principle. Humans are wired to avoid boredom. Our brains crave novelty, challenge, unpredictability. This is why relationships that start intensely often fade. Not because the people involved changed, but because the stimulation decreased. The predictability increased. The mystery dissolved. Machiavelli observed that political leaders who became too predictable lost their power to captivate. Citizens lost interest, stopped paying attention, stopped feeling engaged with the leader's narrative. The same principle governs personal attraction. Predictability kills engagement. Not because predictability is bad in itself, but because the human brain deprioritizes predictable stimuli. It's a survival mechanism. We need to pay attention to what's changing, what's uncertain, and what requires active processing. Stable, predictable things fade into the background. So the strategic approach to maintaining attraction is maintaining strategic unpredictability. Not chaos, not inconsistency in values or character, but unpredictability in expression, interests, and engagement patterns. Here's what this looks like. You have core values and principles that remain consistent. These create trust and security. But you also have varied interests, evolving perspectives, and unpredictable engagement patterns. These create stimulation. Maybe one week you're deeply focused on a creative project and less available. Next week you're highly social and engaged. Maybe in one conversation you're philosophical and serious. In another you're playful and spontaneous. These variations aren't inconsistent, they're range. They're dimensional complexity, and they prevent the other person from fully predicting you, from categorizing you completely, from getting bored. Because boredom is the death of attraction, not traumatic conflict, not betrayal, just slow, steady predictability that makes your presence fade into wallpaper. The anticipation economy. Now we come to perhaps the most powerful element of desire engineering, anticipation. Machiavelli understood that the promise of something is often more powerful than the thing itself, that anticipation creates a psychological state more intense than satisfaction. This is why people pursue goals obsessively only to feel emptiness upon achieving them. The pursuit was more engaging than the possession. In attraction dynamics, this principle is critical. The promise of more creates desire. The fulfillment of everything eliminates it. So the strategic approach is to fulfill some needs while maintaining anticipation for others. To create satisfaction in certain domains while preserving mystery in others. To give enough to create value while withholding enough to create desire for more. And this balance, this strategic management of satisfaction and anticipation is what maintains attraction over time. The satisfaction-anticipation balance. In any interaction or relationship, you want to create moments of genuine satisfaction, real connection, meaningful conversation, authentic shared experience. These moments fulfill immediate needs and create a positive association with your presence. But you also want to end interactions slightly before complete satisfaction, before every question is answered, before every desire is fulfilled, before the other person is ready for the interaction to end. This leaves them in a state of wanting more,
of anticipation for the next interaction, of psychological incompleteness that keeps you on their mind. Think about great meals at restaurants. The best ones leave you satisfied but not overfull, content but already thinking about when you'll return. The same principle applies to human interaction. You want people to leave your presence feeling good but not complete, satisfied but anticipating more. And this balance, this strategic management of satisfaction and anticipation is what maintains attraction over time.
The positioning strategy. Once you've identified someone's void, you don't explicitly offer to fill it. That's too obvious, too transactional. Instead, you position yourself as someone who naturally possesses what they lack. You embody the qualities that would fill their void without making it about them. This is Machiavellian positioning. Machiavelli advised princes to demonstrate their virtues through action, not declaration, to show strength rather than claim it, to prove wisdom rather than advertise it. The same principle applies here. If someone has a recognition void, you don't say, "I see you." You demonstrate sophisticated observation in how you engage with them. If someone has a significant void, you don't try to make them feel special. You demonstrate that your attention is valuable and selective. If someone has an authenticity void, you don't promise depth. You simply show up as genuinely yourself without performance. This positioning is powerful because it's not a sales pitch. It's not, "I can give you what you need." It's, "I naturally am something you've been looking for." And that subtle difference changes the entire dynamic. They're not receiving charity, they're discovering value. And what we discover always feels more valuable than what we're given. The contrast mechanism. But here's where it gets really sophisticated. You don't just embody what fills their void, you create contrast with what they currently have. You become noticeably different from the people they typically interact with. This is critical because humans operate on relative comparison. We don't evaluate things in isolation, we evaluate them against alternatives. So if you're similar to everyone else in someone's life, you get categorized with everyone else. You become part of the background noise. But if you're distinctly different, if you respond differently, engage differently, value different things, you stand out. You become a category of one. Let me show you what this looks like. Scenario. Someone is used to people who are always available and eager to please. The contrast position. Be the person who has boundaries, who's friendly but not desperate for connection, who has their own life and interests that take priority sometimes. This creates cognitive dissonance in them. Everyone else, immediately available, eager to accommodate. You, selectively available, comfortable disappointing them if it conflicts with your priorities. The contrast makes them recategorize you. You're not another person competing for my attention, you're the person whose attention I need to earn. And that inversion is psychologically powerful. Scenario. Someone is surrounded by people who agree with everything they say. The contrast position. Be the person who respectfully disagrees, who has their own opinions and doesn't mold them to match theirs. Everyone else nodding along, agreeing, validating every statement. You, engaging thoughtfully but willing to say, "I see it differently." The contrast makes them value your perspective more because it's not automatically given, because you're not a mirror, because you're demonstrating independent thought. Scenario. Someone is used to people who take them too seriously. The contrast position. Be the playful person, who doesn't treat every interaction like it's profound, who can be light without being shallow. Everyone else, reverent, serious, treating them like they're fragile or important. You, respectful but playful, able to tease them gently, not intimidated by their status or success. The contrast makes them relax around you,
makes your presence feel different, makes interactions with you feel refreshing rather than draining. The key insight: you're not trying to be universally appealing, you're trying to be specifically different, to occupy a psychological space that no one else in their life occupies, and that uniqueness creates value through competitive positioning.
The expectation architecture. Now we get into advanced territory. Managing expectations to create perpetual psychological engagement. Machiavelli wrote about this in terms of political promises. A prince must learn to make promises carefully and fulfill them strategically so that subjects remain hopeful without becoming complacent. Translation: keep people in a state of anticipation without ever fully satisfying or fully disappointing them. This is the psychological sweet spot of attraction maintenance, and it requires understanding expectation management at a sophisticated level. Here's the framework. Under-promise, over-deliver, but not always. When you make plans or commitments, set moderate expectations, then occasionally exceed them. This creates positive surprise, but, and this is crucial, don't always exceed expectations. Sometimes just meet them. Occasionally, even slightly under-deliver with legitimate reasons. Why? Because perfect reliability is predictable, and predictable is forgettable. But a pattern of usually exceeding expectations with occasional variance maintains attention. They can't fully predict you, can't take you for granted, have to stay engaged to see which version they'll get. Create multiple anticipation timelines. Don't put all psychological engagement into one timeline. Have short-term anticipations, like looking forward to continuing this conversation. Medium-term anticipations, like we should check out that place you mentioned sometime. Long-term anticipations, like I want to hear how your project develops over the next few months. This creates multiple psychological hooks into the future, multiple reasons to maintain a connection, multiple reference points that keep you in their mental landscape. The strategic maybe. When making plans or discussing possibilities, occasionally leave things slightly uncertain, not in a flaky way, in a let's see how things develop way. I'd like to do that. Let me check my schedule and get back to you. That sounds interesting. I'm curious to see if the timing works out. This maintains a slight tension, a slight uncertainty, a slight need to follow up and confirm. And that need to follow up keeps you on their mind, keeps the interaction open rather than closed. Reveal progressively, never completely. Remember the mystery principle. It applies to expectations too. When discussing your interests, plans, or perspectives, give enough to be interesting, but not so much that they have your complete picture. Always have more layers to reveal, more depth to discover, more aspects of yourself that haven't been fully explored. This creates a perpetual expectation of discovering more, a sense that they haven't reached the bottom of who you are. And that sense of incomplete discovery maintains engagement over extended time periods. Lasting allure, from fascination to foundation. We've covered the mechanics of attraction engineering: scarcity, mystery, desire manipulation, expectation management. But here's where most people fail. They can create initial fascination, they can generate interest, they can spark pursuit, but they can't sustain it, because they treat attraction as a discrete event rather than an ongoing process. Machiavelli understood that maintaining power required different skills than seizing power, that the tactics that win loyalty aren't the same tactics that keep it. The same is true for attraction. Initial fascination requires novelty, mystery, and strategic positioning, but lasting allure requires something deeper. It requires transitioning from psychological tactics to genuine value creation, from strategic positioning to authentic foundation building. And this is where most dark psychology content fails. It teaches manipulation without teaching transformation. It teaches tactics without teaching sustainability.
But Machiavelli was smarter than that. He understood that real power, lasting power, comes not from tricks, but from becoming genuinely valuable. From creating real utility, real benefit, real irreplaceability. So, let's talk about how to transition from fascination to foundation.
The transition protocol. There's a critical inflection point in any relationship. The moment when novelty fades, when the mystery has been partially resolved, when initial tactics have run their course. This is where most connections die. People often struggle to transition from attraction mechanics to deeper relationship connections. But this transition is where lasting allure is actually built. Here's the framework. Phase 1, strategic attraction, weeks 1 through 8. This is where everything we've discussed applies. Scarcity, mystery, desire manipulation, contrast positioning. You're engineering psychological fascination, creating intrigue, triggering pursuit. But you're also, and this is critical, simultaneously demonstrating genuine value, real competence, real depth, really interesting qualities. Because the tactics create attention, but the substance creates a foundation. Phase 2, selective revelation, months 2 through 4. As the connection deepens, you gradually reveal more layers, but strategically. Not through emotional dumping, through earned disclosure. You share personal history when trust has been established. You reveal vulnerabilities when emotional safety exists. You open up about fears, insecurities, and imperfections when the other person has demonstrated genuine interest in your full humanity. This selective revelation serves multiple purposes. It deepens the connection by creating intimacy. It maintains mystery by revealing layers gradually rather than all at once. It demonstrates trust by showing you're willing to be known. It continues the discovery process rather than completing it. Phase 3, reciprocal investment, months 4 to 8. By this point, if things are progressing, there should be mutual investment. You're not the only one creating value. You're not the only one initiating. You're not the only one pursuing. There's reciprocity. This is critical because sustainable attraction requires mutual investment. If you're always the one creating value, managing dynamics, and maintaining interest, you'll eventually burn out. But if there's genuine reciprocity, if both people are choosing each other, investing in each other, creating value for each other, then the relationship becomes self-sustaining. The Machiavellian insight. Power relationships are most stable when there's mutual benefit, when both parties gain more from maintaining the relationship than from ending it. Phase 4, continuous evolution, ongoing. This is where lasting allure actually happens, not through maintaining initial tactics, but through continuous personal evolution. Remember the stimulation principle? Humans crave novelty and unpredictability, but you can't maintain novelty through tactics alone. You maintain it through genuine growth, by continuing to develop new interests, by evolving your perspectives, by pursuing new challenges, by becoming a moving target rather than a static entity. This ensures that even in long-term relationships, there are always new layers to discover, new aspects of you to engage with, new reasons to remain fascinated, because you're not the same person you were last month or last year. You're continuously developing, and that continuous development creates continuous discovery. The reciprocity principle. Now we need to address something crucial, something that separates manipulation from strategic relationship building: reciprocity. Machiavelli wrote extensively about the reciprocity principle in political relationships. Men are bound to you not by the good you do them, but by the good you enable them to do for you. This is counterintuitive. People assume that doing favors creates loyalty. But Machiavelli observed something more nuanced: allowing people to invest in you, to contribute to your life, to feel valuable to you. That creates deeper bonds than simply being valuable to them.
Because when people invest in you, they become invested in you. When they contribute to your success, your happiness, and your growth, they have psychological ownership of your well-being. And humans protect what they feel ownership of. This is why the person who always gives, always helps, always solves problems often gets taken for granted. They're creating dependency, not reciprocity. They're making themselves useful, not creating mutual investment. The strategic approach is different. Yes, create value. Yes, demonstrate competence. Yes, be someone who enriches others' lives. But also allow others to create value for you. Accept help when genuinely offered. Acknowledge when someone contributes something meaningful. Give people the satisfaction of feeling valuable to you. This creates reciprocal investment. Both people are giving and receiving. Both people are creating value for each other. Both people have reasons to maintain the relationship beyond individual benefit. And that mutuality is the foundation of lasting attraction.
The irreplaceability factor. Let's discuss the ultimate goal. The ultimate expression of lasting allure. Irreplaceability. Machiavelli discussed this in terms of political advisors. The most secure advisors weren't those who were most skilled. They were those who were most uniquely positioned, who understood the prince's specific situation so deeply that replacing them would mean losing institutional knowledge, strategic continuity, and personalized insight. The same principle applies to relationships. Lasting attraction isn't about being objectively the best. It's about being uniquely suited to a specific person's needs, preferences, and psychology. About creating a connection so personalized that replacing you would mean losing something irreplaceable. Here's how this develops. Shared history. Over time, you accumulate shared experiences. Inside jokes, references, memories, shorthand communication. This shared history creates a unique language between you. A way of relating that can't be replicated with someone new. This is why long-term relationships often survive even when objectively better options appear. Because the shared history has value that transcends objective comparison. Personalized understanding. As you invest time in genuinely understanding someone, you develop insights into their psychology that others don't. You know their triggers, their patterns, their deeper motivations. You can read their mood from subtle cues. You understand what they need before they articulate it. This personalized understanding makes you valuable in a way that can't be easily replaced. Because getting someone else to that level of understanding would require significant time and investment. Integrated lives. As relationships deepen, lives become integrated. Shared friendships, shared routines, shared goals. This integration creates practical and emotional dependencies that reinforce connection. Not unhealthy codependency, but natural interdependence that comes from building a life together. Unique value provision. You've positioned yourself as fulfilling specific needs in specific ways. Ways that are unique to you. That reflect your specific combination of qualities, perspectives, and capabilities. This makes you categorically different from alternatives. Not better or worse, different in a way that's specifically suited to this person's psychology. And that categorical difference creates irreplaceability. The power balance principle.
we need to address something uncomfortable: power dynamics in relationships. Machiavelli was obsessed with power dynamics, with who holds leverage and why. And while modern relationship advice pretends power dynamics don't exist, that's naive. They exist in every relationship. The question is whether they're balanced or imbalanced. In the early stages of attraction, a strategic imbalance in your favor creates pursuit. Being slightly less invested, slightly more scarce, slightly more valuable. But in sustainable relationships, balance is healthier and more stable. When both people have roughly equal power, equal investment, equal value creation, equal ability to walk away, the relationship is strongest. Because neither person is trapped by dependency. Neither person is operating from desperation. Both people are choosing each other from positions of strength. The Machiavellian insight. The most stable alliances are those between equals, where both parties benefit and both parties could survive without the relationship, but choose not to. So the goal isn't to maintain a permanent power advantage. It's to transition from a strategic imbalance that creates initial attraction to a healthy balance that creates a sustainable connection. This means, as you reveal more, they reveal more. As you invest, they invest. As you create value, they create value. Reciprocity at every level. And that reciprocity creates a relationship that doesn't require constant tactical management, because both people are genuinely benefiting. Both people are genuinely choosing. Both people are genuinely fulfilled.
Let's discuss the ultimate goal, the ultimate expression of lasting allure: irreplaceability. Machiavelli discussed this in terms of political advisors. The most secure advisors weren't those who were most skilled. They were those who were most uniquely positioned, who understood the prince's specific situation so deeply that replacing them would mean losing institutional knowledge, strategic continuity, and personalized insight. The same principle applies to relationships. Lasting attraction isn't about being objectively the best. It's about being uniquely suited to a specific person's needs, preferences, and psychology. About creating a connection so personalized that replacing you would mean losing something irreplaceable. Here's how this develops. Shared history. Over time, you accumulate shared experiences, inside jokes, references, memories, shorthand communication. This shared history creates a unique language between you, a way of relating that can't be replicated with someone new. This is why long-term relationships often survive even when objectively better options appear, because the shared history has value that transcends objective comparison. Personalized understanding. As you invest time in genuinely understanding someone, you develop insights into their psychology that others don't. You know their triggers, their patterns, their deeper motivations. You can read their mood from subtle cues. You understand what they need before they articulate it. This personalized understanding makes you valuable in a way that can't be easily replaced, because getting someone else to that level of understanding would require significant time and investment. Integrated lives. As relationships deepen, lives become integrated. Shared friendships, shared routines, shared goals. This integration creates practical and emotional dependencies that reinforce connection. Not unhealthy codependency, but natural interdependence that comes from building a life together.
Unique value provision. You've positioned yourself as fulfilling specific needs in specific ways. Ways that are unique to you. That reflects your specific combination of qualities, perspectives, and capabilities. This makes you categorically different from alternatives. Not better or worse. Different in a way that's specifically suited to this person's psychology. And that categorical difference creates irreplaceability. The power balance principle. We need to address something uncomfortable. Power dynamics in relationships. Machiavelli was obsessed with power dynamics, with who holds leverage and why. And while modern relationship advice pretends power dynamics don't exist, that's naive. They exist in every relationship. The question is whether they're balanced or imbalanced. In the early stages of attraction, a strategic imbalance in your favor creates pursuit. Being slightly less invested, slightly more scarce, slightly more valuable. But in sustainable relationships, balance is healthier and more stable. When both people have roughly equal power, equal investment, equal value creation, equal ability to walk away, the relationship is strongest. Because neither person is trapped by dependency. Neither person is operating from desperation. Both people are choosing each other from positions of strength. The Machiavellian insight. The most stable alliances are those between equals, where both parties benefit and both parties could survive without the relationship, but choose not to. So the goal isn't to maintain a permanent power advantage. It's to transition from a strategic imbalance that creates initial attraction to a healthy balance that creates a sustainable connection. This means, as you reveal more, they reveal more. As you invest, they invest. As you create value, they create value. Reciprocity at every level. And that reciprocity creates a relationship that doesn't require constant tactical management. Because both people are genuinely benefiting. Both people are genuinely choosing. Both people are genuinely fulfilled. The authenticity paradox. We've spent this entire transmission discussing tactics, strategies, and psychological manipulation. But now we need to address the core paradox. The thing Machiavelli himself struggled with. The tension between strategic behavior and authentic self-expression. Here's the uncomfortable truth. All human interaction involves some level of strategic self-presentation. We all manage how we're perceived. We all make decisions about what to reveal and what to conceal. We all position ourselves in ways designed to achieve certain outcomes. The difference isn't between people who are strategic and authentic. It's between people who are conscious of their strategy and people who aren't. Between people who choose their positioning deliberately and people who do it unconsciously. The people who claim to be just authentic are often the least self-aware. They're strategic without knowing it. They're following social scripts without recognizing them as scripts. The Machiavellian approach is different. It's a conscious strategic positioning in service of genuine goals. It's understanding psychological principles not to manipulate people into liking a false version of you, but to present your genuine self in the most compelling way possible. Think about it this way. You have real qualities, real interests, real values. The strategic question isn't whether to fake different qualities. It's how to present your real qualities for maximum impact. When to reveal certain aspects of yourself. How to frame your genuine interests in compelling ways. How to position your authentic values as attractive rather than off-putting. This is the authenticity paradox. Being genuinely yourself requires strategic awareness of how you're perceived, because your internal experience of yourself and others' perception of you are not the same thing. And if you care about how you're received, if you want to be attractive, influential, remembered, you need to bridge that gap, not by becoming fake, but by becoming strategically authentic, by understanding how your genuine qualities land on others and positioning them effectively. The final protocol, integration. So here's how this all comes together. How do you integrate Machiavellian principles into genuine attraction building? Step 1. Self-development. Before tactics, build substance. Develop genuine competence in domains that matter to you. Cultivate interests that genuinely fascinate you. Build a life you're proud of, independent of others' validation. This creates the foundation that makes all tactics sustainable. Step 2. Strategic positioning. Once you have genuine value, position it strategically. Don't be available to everyone. Don't reveal everything immediately. Don't give away your expertise freely. Manage scarcity, mystery, and selective revelation. Step 3. Psychological calibration. Pay attention to others' psychological needs. Identify their voids. Position yourself as naturally fulfilling what they lack. Create contrast with their other relationships. Create contrasting benefits. Step 4. Expectation management. Manage anticipation through variable rewards. Create multiple timeline anticipations. Maintain strategic uncertainty. Keep the discovery process ongoing. Step 5. Reciprocity building. Transition from one-sided value creation to mutual investment. Allow others to contribute to your life. Create interdependencies. Build shared history and personalized understanding. Step 6. Continuous evolution. Never stop developing. Keep learning, growing, changing. Remain a moving target. Ensure there are always new layers to discover. Step 7. Authentic integration. Use strategic awareness in the service of genuine self-expression. Present your real self most compellingly. Bridge the gap between internal experience and external perception. Become consciously authentic rather than unconsciously strategic. This is the Machiavellian path to lasting allure. Not through tricks or deception, through a sophisticated understanding of psychological principles applied to genuine self-development and strategic self-presentation.